Well, here we are again, you and I, staring into this marvelous, bewildering dance we call existence. And today I want to unravel a peculiar knot in the human psyche, a knot that many of us aren't even aware we're tying, let alone clinging to. It's this profound, often unexamined tendency we have to cling to a memory of ourselves, not merely to recall past events, but to construct and then fiercely defend an image of who we believe ourselves to be, based entirely on what has been. Think about it. From the moment we are born, we begin to accumulate experiences, names, roles, triumphs, failures, even peculiar habits. They all get filed away, not just as data, but as building blocks for a conceptual structure, a kind of internal statue we erect in our own honor. This statue, this me, is assembled from the shards and gleamings of yesteryear. We say, I am a person who always finishes what they start, or I am someone who is terribly shy, or I am a success because of my achievements. But who is this I that is doing the saying, and is this I truly present, truly alive, truly now? Or is it merely an echo, a reverberation in the chambers of the mind? We are, in essence, trying to pour the boundless, flowing river of life into a precast mould. The river, of course, simply laughs and continues on its way, ever changing, ever new. But we, the little boat caught in its current, insist on measuring its depth and direction by the wake we've left behind. We consult the logbook of the journey, rather than feeling the spray on our faces in the immediate moment. It's a subtle form of spiritual autobiography, constantly being revised and edited, yet rarely, if ever, truly discarded. Why do we do this? The human mind, in its magnificent complexity, also possesses a deep-seated craving for certainty, for security. The present moment, by its very nature, is a wild, untamed thing. It's fresh, unpredictable, and entirely beyond our control. It's the edge of the unknown, and for many that's simply too terrifying. So, we retreat. We retreat into the comforting, familiar landscape of what was. We build our identities, our sense of self, like a fortress out of bricks of memory. I know who I am, we declare, and what we mean by that is, I know who I have been. We cling to these memories because they provide a sense of continuity, a bedrock in the ceaseless flux. Without it, we fear we would simply dissolve, evaporate into the nothingness. Imagine a musician who, every time they sit down to play, can only replay the notes of their last performance. They could be a virtuoso, capable of astonishing improvisation, but if they are bound by the memory of their own past glory, or even their past mistakes, they are not truly playing, they are reciting. The music is not born anew, it is merely reanimated, and so it is with us. When we cling to the memory of ourselves, we are constantly reciting a script that was written in a different scene, perhaps even for a different actor. We are not truly living the present moment. We're attempting to fit it into a costume from yesterday's wardrobe. This isn't to say that memory has no place. Of course it does. Memory allows us to learn, to grow, to appreciate the narrative arc of our lives, but there's a crucial difference between remembering and being bound by memory. To remember is to glance back, to acknowledge the path trod. To be bound by memory is to walk backward, using the past as the sole guide for steps into the future, never truly seeing what lies ahead, or even what is right underfoot. The danger, you see, is that this remembered self becomes a cage. We become prisoners of our own biographies. If you believe yourself to be a failure because of past missteps, every new opportunity is filtered through that lens of failure. You carry that ghost with you. If you believe yourself to be endlessly successful, you might become rigid, unable to adapt, unable to learn from new experiences that don't fit your preconceived notion of triumph. The I becomes a static entity rather than the dynamic, flowing process that it actually is. Consider the notion of forgiveness, for instance. To forgive another, or even to forgive oneself, fundamentally involves letting go of the memory of what was. It's acknowledging that the person who committed the act is not necessarily the person who stands before you now, or who you are now. The past event happened, yes, but the clinging to its emotional residue, its definitional power over the present moment, that's where the trouble lies. When we define ourselves by our past actions, good or bad, we preclude the possibility of genuine transformation. We prevent ourselves from being truly reborn in each breath. It's like trying to navigate a forest by only looking at the trees you've already passed. You stumble, you miss the vibrant life around you, and you certainly don't discover any new clearings or hidden springs. The ego, that cunning architect of our remembered selves, loves this game. It thrives on definition, on clear boundaries, on the illusion of control. And so it constructs this elaborate edifice of me, built brick by historical brick. But what if just for a moment we allowed ourselves to step outside this carefully constructed historical self? What if we dared to experience ourselves not as a collection of past attributes, but as an immediate, vibrant, and utterly new presence? The difficulty, of course, is that this feels like a kind of death, the death of the familiar, the dissolution of the me we've worked so hard to cultivate. Yet it is precisely in this letting go that true life, true being, truly unfolds. Think of how children live. They are, for the most part, entirely in the present moment. A child falls, cries, and a minute later is absorbed in a new discovery, the tears forgotten, the past incident not defining their play. They don't carry the memory of "I am a child who falls down" as a fundamental tenet of their being. They simply fall, get up, and move on. This is not to romanticize childhood naivety, but to point to an underlying wisdom, the profound ability to be fresh, to be open, to experience without immediately filing it away into the rigid categories of a static self. We say, "Oh, I'm just not that kind of person," when presented with a new opportunity, a new challenge, a new way of being. What we mean is, my remembered self, my historical self, is not that kind of person, and I dare not deviate from its established narrative. We become like actors, trapped in a single role, even when the play has long since ended and the audience has gone home. We continue to perform for an empty theatre, believing that our identity depends on maintaining the character. This clinging to memory is also a profound obstacle to genuine connection with others. When we meet someone, we often don't truly see them. Instead, we're busy fitting them into our remembered categories, our past experiences of people like them, or even projecting our own remembered self onto the interaction. We engage not with the raw, fresh reality of another human being, but with a tapestry woven from old threads. How can true empathy, true understanding, truly flourish in such a mental landscape? We're not listening to them. We're listening to our own internal monologue about them based on yesterday's data. The whole game of life, you see, is not about becoming something that you are not. It is about realizing that you already are everything, but you have simply forgotten. You have forgotten because you have become so engrossed in the meticulous crafting and maintenance of this tiny remembered self, this fragment, this carefully curated artifact. The universe, in its boundless generosity, offers you a fresh identity, a new self in every single moment, but we, in our stubbornness, refuse the gift, preferring the old, worn-out garment of what we imagine ourselves to be. The profound truth is that you are not your memories. You are not your past achievements, nor your past failures. You are not the labels others have placed upon you, nor even the labels you have placed upon yourself. These are all ephemeral constructs, like ripples on the surface of a vast ocean. The ocean itself, the profound, undifferentiated ground of being, is what you truly are. And that ocean is always now. It's always present, always flowing, always encompassing, always utterly new. To truly live, then, is to allow this remembered self to dissolve, to let it flow away like sand through your fingers. It's to embrace the terrifying yet exhilarating freedom of not knowing who you are going to be in the very next moment. It's to be open, utterly open, to the unfolding mystery rather than trying to force it into the familiar contours of a bygone script. This is not a passive surrender to chaos. It is an active engagement with the dance of existence, a willingness to participate fully without the heavy burden of a preconceived character. It's knowing that your true self is not something to be found in the past, but something to be created anew in the living, breathing present. So I invite you, my dear listener, to a small experiment. For just a few moments each day, try to simply be without the story. without the resume, without the accumulated weight of what you were, just the pure, unadulterated sensation of being alive here and now. Feel the breath entering and leaving your body. Notice the sounds around you, not labeling them, not judging them, just hearing them. Feel the ground beneath your feet, the air on your skin. And in that raw, immediate experience, ask yourself, who is this I that is experiencing? Is it the remembered I from yesterday, or is it something far more vast, far more fluid, far more wonderfully free? This isn't easy, of course. The ego, that master storyteller, will resist with all its might. It will throw up old narratives, old insecurities, old triumphs, desperate to reclaim its territory. But simply observe it, watch it doing its work. Do not fight it, simply do not become it. Recognize it as a habit of mind, a well-worn groove, rather than the fundamental truth of your being. And this brings us to the profound insight often missed in our cultural chase after self-improvement. The idea of a finished self is a logical and spiritual impossibility. The moment you define yourself, you arrest the motion of your being. You declare the river has stopped flowing. But reality, the Tao, the underlying pattern of the universe, is a verb, not a noun. It is process, pure and simple. Therefore, to be in harmony with reality, the self must be understood as a dynamic, living action, a continuous expression that cannot be captured in the net of memory or language. When we cling to a memory of ourselves, we are trying to replace the spontaneous, wet, wild fact of our existence with a dry, dusty description of it. It's like eating the menu instead of the meal. This resistance to fluidity is also a refusal to accept the beautiful, terrifying cosmic pattern of give and take. Life is a continuous cycle of dying and being born again. Every breath is a dying to the last breath and a birth of the next. Every moment of true learning involves the death of an old assumption. Yet we want the perpetual spring without the necessary autumn and winter. We cling to the remembered self because it represents a perceived gain, an accumulation, a solid asset. But the truest, deepest life is only found in the willingness to let all assets dissolve, to be utterly bankrupt of a fixed identity, and to find that the very act of dissolution is, paradoxically, the source of infinite wealth and creative renewal. Only the empty cup can be filled, and only the empty self can receive the whole of existence. The true self, you see, has no memory, it has no history. It is the eternal witness, the ground upon which all memories and histories play out, but it itself remains untouched, pristine, eternally present. When you identify with this eternal witness, this fundamental awareness, you realize that you are not diminished by letting go of your past self. You are expanded. You become the entire universe rather than just a tiny, remembered fragment of it. Consider the act of listening to music. If you are constantly comparing the current note to the previous one or anticipating the next, are you truly hearing the music, or are you engaged in a mental exercise of prediction and comparison? To truly hear music is to let each note, each phrase arrive fresh, without the baggage of expectation or the residue of what has just passed. It's to be entirely present with the sound as it unfolds. And so it is with life. To truly live is to let each moment unfold, without the heavy hand of the remembered self trying to orchestrate it, trying to fit it into a score that was written long ago. The irony is that this clinging to a static self, this desperate attempt to be consistent with our past, is precisely what prevents us from being truly authentic. Authenticity is not about maintaining a fixed identity, it's about being truly responsive to the present moment, allowing our actions and our being to emerge spontaneously from the depths of our immediate experience, rather than from a pre-programmed script. The most authentic people are those who are not afraid to contradict their past selves, to learn, to grow, to change, to be utterly new in each unfolding moment. They are like water, taking the shape of whatever vessel they are in, yet always remaining essentially water. This fixation on the remembered self also fuels a great deal of anxiety and suffering. We worry about maintaining our image, about living up to expectations, our own and others, about what people will think if we deviate from the established narrative. But I've always been known as X, we lament, when an opportunity to be Y arises. This fear of inconsistency, this fear of dissolving the carefully constructed me, is a tremendous burden. It's like carrying a heavy suitcase filled with old photographs and souvenirs, insisting that they are you rather than simply pleasant mementos of a journey. But the journey continues, doesn't it? And the person taking the steps in this moment is not entirely the same person who took them yesterday or a decade ago. Cells have regenerated, thoughts have shifted, experiences have accumulated and transformed. You are, in a very real sense, a different being. Yet we cling to the illusion of sameness, the illusion of a continuous, unchanging core self that exists independently of the flow. And this illusion prevents us from fully embracing the richness and unpredictability of genuine evolution. What if we allowed ourselves the freedom to be delightfully inconsistent, to explore new facets of our being without feeling guilty about betraying an old self? What if we understood that the self is not a fixed thing, like a noun, but a continuous process, like a verb? To self, to be selfing, to be constantly becoming, constantly unfolding, without ever settling into a final definitive form. This is the dance, the dynamic play of existence. And our clinging to a memory of ourselves is often just a refusal to dance, a desire to stand still in a world that is always in motion. So let us try, you and I, to loosen our grip on that old, faded photograph of who we were. Let us dare to step into the vibrant, terrifying, and utterly glorious present moment without the heavy luggage of our past identities, for it is only then that we truly discover who we are, not as a static object, but as a living, breathing, evolving expression of the cosmos itself. It is only then that we realize that the self we were so desperately clinging to was merely a shadow cast by the light of a past sun, and the true light, the light of this eternal now, is always available, always waiting, always inviting us to be utterly, magnificently new.